What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so we need to discuss Chicago and what is going on with Brandon Johnson, for crying out loud. It's insane, if you ask me. It's truly insane how just the reaction from these people, right? It's like an anaphylactic reaction. They're just having a freaking meltdown over this, over Donald Trump trying to send in the National Guard to help with the crime problem. They want to ignore the crime problem. I've got a video clip to show you guys too. We're going to inject that into the middle of the news article at the perfect time, as a matter of fact. Let's see what we got going on here. Check this out, y'all. 54 shot over the weekend in Chicago as governor rejects Trump's threats to send in National Guard. Now, you love how this is framed. Trump's threats. Threats. What do you mean threats? Like the language that the corporate press use. That, my friends, is a micro-manipulation. Somebody is threatening you. That's not a threat to go and help you clean up crime, for crying out loud. I mean, sure, you can say that, but is that really a threat? Like, put it this way. Let's throw an analogy out there and see if this is analogous. You over here, you just walking by yourself, you know, you're walking down the street, and then all of a sudden, somebody just shoves you to the ground and jumps on top of you and starts beating in your face, right? Just boom, 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 boom. And then Donald Trump sees this. And he's like, I'm calling the cops. And you hear that and you're like, no, you're a fascist. That's what we've got going on over here. It's calling Donald Trump a fascist because he wants to call the cops to get the guy that's beating your freaking face in to stop beating your freaking face in. That's what we've got going on, and it's truly insane. 54 people just over this weekend. That's absurd, and they're calling him a fascist. It's a military takeover. Blah, 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 blah. You've got crime. Like, Chicago is probably the worst of the major cities in the country as far as crime. Now they want to come out. I saw a news article earlier. I'm not going to cover it, but trying to say crime was down or something like that. As a matter of fact, it's part of the clip, but I also saw a news article about it. It's fascinating. Now, let's get into this, and I'll throw that clip in here in a minute. At least 54 people have been shot, 7 fatally across Chicago over Labor Day weekend, including a drive-by attack that left 7 victims wounded, according to police. The violent holiday weekend came as President Donald Trump renewed threats to send federal agents and National Guard troops to Chicago over the objections of Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Once again, they didn't say why Donald Trump was sending in the National Guard, did they? No. And once again, this is micro-manipulations, because now you're just thinking, what, they're going to take over the city? Is it a military takeover? Oh, Donald Trump is a fascist. Right? It's all got fascist undertones when they're speaking about Donald Trump. That's all what it is. They're sending the National Guard to do what they did in Washington, D.C., to bolster the local PD, to help stop crime, to take these people into custody and throw them into jails when they go out committing violent crimes, for crying out loud. Once again, folks, it's like you got somebody trying to help you. You fall off a freaking ladder and you're on the ground because you just broke both of your legs and your back, and somebody runs over to help and you're like, fascist. Like, what? I'm just trying to call an ambulance. And they call you a Nazi for doing so. I mean, that's essentially what we have going on here, and it's truly insane. Like, the people of Chicago are screaming out for help. They really are. And Brandon Johnson is saying this.
As the mayor of this city, I can tell you that Chicagoans are not calling for a military occupation. They are calling for the same thing that we've been calling for some time, and that's investment. What safe cities across America all have in common, they invest in people. And that's what we're doing in Chicago. We need the federal resources to make sure that we're building more affordable housing, expanding mental and behavioral health care, education, all of these things that could reduce crime and provide real community safety. Instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars for a publicity stunt to invoke chaos and terror, the federal government should spend that money on proven solutions to crime and violence reduction. We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence. We've already tried that, And we've ended up with the largest prison population in the world without solving the problems of crime and violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, it is unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down.
These people truly believe by building more projects, hey, we'll eliminate crime doing this. That's where most of the crime is taking place, as a matter of fact. You go build government housing and all this other stuff, that's where the crime is happening. Has that fixed any of the crime problems? Once again, he says we can't incarcerate our way into a violent-free society, for crying out loud, and he's right about that. He's definitely right about that. But, you know, we have guardrails to our society for a reason. You must hold people accountable for their actions. There's no other way around that. You must hold people. When they commit a crime, you must hold them accountable. Soft on crime policies don't fix that. Government housing doesn't fix that. A welfare check doesn't fix that. More free health care does not fix those cultural issues. It's all about culture. What we're pushing on our people. We push people to not be accountable to themselves, for crying out loud. Oh, it's always the system's fault, or it's the man's fault, or it's my racism, or it's my misogyny, or something like that. It's always somebody else with these people all of the time, and I'm sick and tired of that, because people need to take accountability for their own actions. You know, you weren't racially profiled when you pulled over, you were fucking speeding. That's what you were doing. Or you didn't have your seatbelt on. It wasn't racial profiling. That is illegal these days. And not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm just saying that it's not widespread to cause chaos like we're seeing in Chicago. It's absurd to say, oh, my racism is the reason why crime is bad. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Look at the statistics. Like, the black on black crime statistics destroy that argument outright. Because where's the racist involved in that situation? Robberies, as a matter of fact, destroy that argument right there. Now, the robberies that might be attributable to, you know, the government or cheaper housing argument. But once again, you look back at studies and like where the crime is being taken place. Yeah, cheap housing doesn't fix these things. We've tried these things. They don't work. Once again, incarceration, it gets criminals off of the street. It gives you a result. And that's what you want. You want results. But we must come together as communities. I know that's much harder for a place like Chicago to do. There's so many people and it's so widespread and whatnot. It's harder to do, but you know, it's got to start with our foundations. It's got to start at the home, keeping families together. And, you know, the society and, you know, the single mother issue that we have where they've decided to, yeah, let's not care about building a nuclear family. Let's just get a government check to sustain our daily lives, for crying out loud. Taking fathers out of the homes, allowing for divorce rates to skyrocket, for crying out loud. You know, the no-fault divorce was a terrible, terrible decision made by a Republican president. One of the quote-unquote best presidents, Ronald Reagan, did that. That was a nuclear bomb on the nuclear family, for crying out loud. That was a terrible decision, y'all. It allows people to just get divorced willy-nilly instead of trying to work together, instead of trying to keep that family unit together. It really is insane what they're doing to our society this day and age. They just want to destroy the nuclear family because they're Marxists, folks, and they want a color revolution in this country. And it's kind of hard to pull off in a country the size of the United States, but they are doing a good job right now. They have been pushing in this direction for a long time. They want to pit black people against white people against Latinos, and everybody against everybody. They want to place you in a box. If you're LGBTQ, or if you're, you know, heteronormative, or if you're Catholic, or, you know, traditional, or whatever it may be, they want to place you in these boxes. They don't understand that you, the urbanite in Chicago, in a deeply, let's say, poor black neighborhood, are just the same as I am. a white guy from suburban South Louisiana, for crying out loud. We're the same. We might not look the same, but we're the same. We all have aspirations of making it big on YouTube or whatever that may be. We just want peace, and we want to live our daily lives, for crying out loud. We all want the same things. But it's our conditions and situations that make us different, that make us do and act differently, for crying out loud. But we are all human beings. We all bleed the same. Our guts, they all look the same. Once you open everything up, folks, that's why I always say, I don't think racism is very pervasive. Not anymore, at least. I was brought up in an era where we viewed skin color essentially as a paint scheme on a vehicle. It's the same thing. We're all the same underneath. Our bones look different. If they pull us out of the ground 1,000 years from now, they won't be able to tell what skin color we had, for crying out loud. They won't be able to tell how tan somebody was. It's insane what they try to do with placing people in boxes, and it's destroying our society, for goodness sakes. So let's keep going before I rant on forever. Trump on Saturday sent a warning to Pritzker in a post on his social media platform referencing recent crime in Chicago and saying Pritzker better straighten it out fast or we're coming. Pritzker, a Democrat, responded in a news conference a week ago to an earlier Trump threat to straighten out Chicago, just like we did D.C., by saying that the president's plan was unprecedented and unwarranted. It is illegal. It is unconstitutional. It is un-American. So now he's trying to say it's un-American to fight crime. Oh, we're going to government house our way into getting rid of crime. That's one of the most ridiculous statements I've heard in my entire life. That will never happen. I don't care how much cheap housing you have. Evil people exist, and those evil people destroy those arguments. They just do. Johnson responded last week by saying in part that he had grave concerns about the impact of any unlawful deployment of National Guard troops to the city of Chicago and calling Trump's approach uncoordinated, uncalled for, and unsound. Johnson also said that deploying the National Guard in Chicago could inflame tensions between residents and law enforcement. So, once again, does that matter though? Inflame tensions? I don't think it will. I really don't think it will. I think that's all lies and excuses. Uncoordinated? He hasn't done it yet. Like, you see what they tried to do here? They're trying to put out this idea that, oh, it's just utter chaos coming from the Trump administration. And the chaos that's going on in our city, that's because of, the government hasn't sent us $1.15 billion. You heard him say in that video that we don't need National Guard. We need more money. They think throwing money at that problem will fix it. Well, you know what? You guys have went over your budget by $1.15 billion for a city, for goodness sakes. Do you think throwing more money at the problem is going to fix anything? Chicago has a portly sized government housing project infrastructure, if you will. Has that fixed the crime? Has any of that fixed the crime? Has any of your government handouts stopped a single crime from taking place? I know that's a hard ask. You can't quantify that. You just can't. It's an impossibility. But that doesn't stop them from making the argument. And it's an absurd argument. You need all of those things together to fix the problem, right? Culture will fix this. Culture will fix everything. Because the crime wasn't this bad back in the 50s. We need to look and see what was going on. Oh, the nuclear family was strong. Was at its strongest back then. We didn't have all this crime. Guns. You could go and get a gun. Most people didn't say anything about it. Right? People need to defend themselves. The number of defensive uses of a weapon in this country versus the gun violence numbers are very, very stark. It's anywhere. The numbers are sporadic. I'm not going to lie about that. It's anywhere, right? It ranges from year to year, but it's anywhere from 500,000 to 3 million defensive uses of a gun every single year. And you go look at the gun violence, like the deaths, the gun violence just in general statistics, it's a lot less than that, as a matter of fact. But they don't want to give you that defensive use of a weapon. They don't want you to know that, because they don't want you to know that you could absolutely stop crime from happening to you by having a weapon on your person. It's insane, y'all. It really is. On Saturday, Johnson signed an executive order dubbed the Protecting Chicago Initiative. How'd that work out for you, buddy? Which he described in a news conference as the most sweeping campaign of any city in the country to protect ourselves from the threat and actions of this out-of-control administration, and which directs our Department of Law to pursue any and every legal mechanism to hold this administration accountable for violating the rights of Chicagoans. And they haven't even done anything yet. Oh, I know that's a statement, like a past statement. Oh, they violated the rights of Chicagoans. It's insane. He basically just directed the PD to not work with federal law enforcement. That's what he did. That's insane. And then he wants to call it uncoordinated and unsound. Well, it's your fault if it is uncoordinated, because you made it that way, because you refuse to cooperate with federal law enforcement that just want to help bring the crime levels down. We have received credible reports that we have days, not weeks, before our city sees some type of militarized activity by the federal government, Johnson said in part. We take these threats seriously, and we find ourselves in a position where we must take immediate drastic action to protect our people from federal overreach. At least 32 separate shootings occurred in Chicago between 10:32 Friday and noon on Monday, according to a review by ABC News of police incident reports published online. The victims included a 17-year-old girl who was inside her home when a bullet came through a front window and hit her in the arm, a 31-year-old man who was shot in the leg after getting caught in the crossfire of gunmen shooting at each other from two vehicles, and two people who were shot and injured while driving down a street, all according to the incident reports. Fewer than 5 hours after Trump posted a message on social media on Saturday criticizing Pritzker's handling of crime in Chicago, a mass shooting occurred in the Bronzeville neighborhood of Chicago's South Side that left 7 people wounded. Wow, is all I can say about that. And, you know, kudos to, what was that, CBS, I think? Kudos to CBS for the structure of that and allowing me to contrast the statements of Brandon Johnson to what is actually going on in Chicago. It's fascinating, y'all. You know, he says, oh, we don't want your federal help, while there's just utter chaos going on in the background. Carnage, as a matter of fact. Just utter carnage going on behind him, right? It's like the guy from 2020 that standing in front of a federal courthouse that is being burnt to the freaking ground, saying it's mostly peaceful, but fiery protest. It's insane what is going on. The resistance to Donald Trump, right? He just wants to make America great again, and you people are trying to destroy America. And I don't understand why. I don't understand the resistance. He wants to come in and help clean up the crime. Now, you might think that you'll never incarcerate your way into a crime-free society. Well, you're right about that. But you know what? Like I said, people need to be held to account. If there is no accountability, crime will only increase. That's just a logical fact, right? It's an axiom of reality, for goodness sakes. You just can't get around that. It's just a fact that can't be denied. People must be held to account. Once again, you know, it goes back to Blackstone's formula, for crying out loud. It's better to let 100 criminals get away than have one innocent person suffer. Right? And if that one innocent person is suffering because of those criminals getting away, we've got a problem going on, folks. We've got a major problem going on. You know, there's no incentive structure if the criminals aren't going to be held to account. If somebody's playing by the rules constantly and they see these criminals just getting away with robbing and stealing and doing, whatever they can do to do whatever they want to do, where's the incentive for good upstanding citizens not to commit crimes? I think personally that soft on crime only begets more crime, to be honest with you, because there's no incentive structure to do the right thing. That's why culture plays a big part in this. Culture plays a major part in this. There's a lot of pride out there. But I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one, y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. That's all I got. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. That would be great. Sign up. Become a member. Help me push back against the corporate press. Because they just want to manipulate everything, folks. Right? Everything is a manipulation when it comes to the mainstream narrative machine. The mainstream news. They just manipulate. It's insane, y'all, but y'all do all that for me. And y'all remember that God is always with us. And he loves each and every one of you out there. So y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.